Welcome. This is a recording of workshops that were delivered by FAMS about the TEI DEX reports and how we would look at those reports and use them to our advantage. They were recorded in May, they were delivered in May 2021, and we also in June had a hybrid event, which was at the Wesley Centre with people online as well. I'd like to acknowledge that I am on the land of the Dharawal people of the Dharawal Nation and pay my respects to elders past, present, and those young people emerging. I'd also like to thank our Aboriginal people for their ongoing care of land and sea and air, and acknowledge their very close connection with community and with culture. So today, the workshop really was all about introducing you to new resources that help you make sense of the DEX reports and where you might find them, to look at what they look like and just the general information that was in each one. We talked in the workshops about how they're useful, and I may give you some tips about that, what you could use them for and how they might be able to help you. And really, it was just to acknowledge across organizations that different people in your organization will use your reports in very different ways, from the board or management to the operations people and to the workers on the ground for which their data is actually in these reports. You can certainly use them for contract alignment and checking and having conversations with your CPOs. And the third part of this recording, the third PowerPoint, we're going to talk you through some of the ways that you can check off your contract, your deliverables with your DEX reports. Certainly for continuous improvement, looking at your data, using your data to inform your programs, checking whether what works, identifying what works, checking whether if you're delivering evidence-based programs, whether the outcomes that are purported for that evidence-based programs are actually being achieved across your particular activities. Testing that evidence of what works. Perhaps it is something that you have hypothesized, that you've predicted, something new that you're trying, and you can certainly test how that results in the outcomes, the results of the outcomes of the people that you're working with. This is all part of that continuous improvement process. And developing new evidence. If you are trying something new, if you are delivering evidence-based programs and in your space that happens differently, all of that is about developing new evidence for the TEI program, for early intervention, and for discussions that we can have about practice in the future. You can use the TEI reports for your monthly or quarterly or annual reporting to boards or your community. You can certainly download sections of the reports in Excel or in PDF format. You can also develop that narrative, that story around your services and your clients and your outcomes. The data will give you the figures and the numbers, but of course we all know without that story, your data doesn't tell the full story. It doesn't give everyone the full picture of what is going on in your programs. Certainly, you can use the data and reports for additional funding opportunities, for funding applications, showing the impact of what you do and showing what you do. The resources that have just been developed, and we are very lucky in head office to have Katie and Sam, who have been really busy developing resources, and for probably the first time that I have been aware of, we actually have resources ahead of the time that we need them. And this has been a great partnership with Central Office. So there are 4 new resources already developed, already up on the DCJ TEI website. The first is Access, Explore, Export Your data. The second is using data in the TEI program. The third, using data to improve your services. And the last one is about the New South Wales TEI activity report, which is actually a new report that's been developed by Central Office. And that one will speak the language of TEI. If you haven't been on the key TEI Resources webpage, please go there. It has a number of resources, including these ones. They'll be very helpful, anything from program logic templates to information about how to create cases and sessions on DEX. This first one is the guide to access and explore and export. It will talk you through using filters. You can alter graphs in all of your reports, and you can create stories as well. I think one thing that we need to really remember is that you can't shift the data. When you're going into these reports, you can't change anything, you can't delete anything. Really what you are doing is you're looking at the data that is already in the system, and it is up to you how you filter it to see the different things that you want to see. That second one about data quality will help you to monitor your performance. It will help you to compare your contract and your schedule in your contract against what you are delivering, or actually what you are reporting to in DEX. The overview of the New South Wales activity report takes you through what data is in there and where you can find it. And the guide to using data to understand client need is that next step, that continuous improvement, being able to look at your data and use it for to improve outcomes for the children, young people, communities, families that you're working with. These are really just the first paragraphs of each of the documents. So the Access, Explore, Export one, it talks about the reports, how you access the data exchange reports and navigate around them, how you can filter and explore your data. You can actually filter for certain program activities and service types, which is really helpful. How to export your data into those PDFs, those Excel spreadsheets, and it will talk about the other resources that are available to you. Using data in the TEI program, we'll talk about how you demonstrate performance against your TEI contracts. It helps you to identify and fix data quality issues as well. The New South Wales activity report helps you to keep track of your key performance measures and understand who your clients are and what they need. And that happens in real time. I think it's about 24 hours after you've entered data or information that it is available to you on your reports. The TEI activity report will help you to understand what activities are effective. It will look at score and the outcomes that they contribute to, and it will help you to identify key data quality issues as well. I talked briefly at the beginning about different people in your organisation benefiting. Management committee and boards may have access to the reports that they can look at monthly. Management might actually use some of the data exported to provide for those committees and boards also. It will help management to understand what sort of outcomes that you're actually achieving in your programs, and it will be a useful tool for everybody. In operations and administration, of course, you'll be using some of the resources to check off that you're delivering the programs and activities that you're being funded to deliver. Also looking at access and making sure that you're accessing the client groups and the locations that are on your contract. Looking at where people are coming from and what are their issues is certainly something that team leaders and managers will be looking at to improve the scope of the programs that they offer, but also to look at that in relation to teamwork and working on programs and working on need in the area and developing programs that are based around identified needs that you get from the report. For face-to-face workers, and I so recommend if you're a team leader or a manager and your workers don't have access to these reports, I would recommend giving them access. Your workers will know the data for their programs. They'll know whether the data is misleading you, whether it is reported correctly or not. It's the work that they know best. So certainly involve them in any of the analysis of these reports. DCJ CPOs will be using the reports to have contract conversations. So they'll be able to see some of the data from your programs and they'll be able to have those conversations with you. When you access your reports, you do so from your dashboard, and down in that bottom picture where the rectangle is in red, that's where you click on to go to your reports. I should say, as well as the resources on the DCJ website, go to DSS, the Data Exchange website. They have numerous resources in voice and in written form that you can access for everything that you will need to do in DEX. If you actually click on that button that says to access your reports and you don't see the partnership approach reports, and that will be this TEI report that we're going to look at today, it could be that you haven't signed up to the partnership approach. And that is a simple process. If you are an administrator for your organisation in DEX, you need to go into the edit organisation and it should be a box there that you can just tick. And you'll probably need to wait that 24 hours before those partnership approach reports actually show up. But this is what your computer really will look like. There are standard reports and they're DSS generated reports, and there's a few more than those two, but those are two useful standard reports. And then there's the partnership reports. And included in that is the New South Wales TEI activity report that we're going to have a look at today. Please don't forget that there are other resources available on the NGO Learning Centre. There's part 1 and part 2 of measuring outcomes for your clients. Part 1 is individual clients, and they'll be predominantly those identified clients in the safety and wellbeing streams of TEI. Part 2, measuring outcomes for groups and activities, and that will be probably a mix of your unidentified clients and your identified clients, and predominantly probably in that community strengthening stream of the TEI program. Now, in the workshops in May, we actually had access to some real-time data. Unfortunately, I don't have that, but I am going to attempt to show you some pages from the reports. So here we have that desktop. This is possibly what you will see when you have clicked into view your reports. And over here with the green men is the New South Wales activity report. And you would click on that to see that particular report. There are other reports there, and like I said, you can't delete any data. So I encourage everyone to go in and have a play, to have a look at what the reports are telling them so far. Now, when we call it a single report, it's actually a report with a number of different pages, and these are all of the sheets, as they call them, all with different information or the same information represented in different ways. So there's 19 of these sheets, and they will tell you information about the data that you actually have in the data exchange. There is a filters page, and the filters page is really helpful for you to actually identify certain parts of information that you'll need. Now, there is a lot of information on this filters page because it is actually from across New South Wales. But for you, when you click on this filters page, you'll just have your attendance type, probably most of those group, individual and support, because you might have a mix of both well-being and safety and the community strengthening TEI streams. You'll be able to choose the financial year and also the reporting period. So if you just wanted to look at one reporting period, you could do that. You'll be able to choose your outlet by DCJ district. So you'll be able to choose your district, your outlet by LGA as well. And your outlet by name. So you could perhaps have outlets that are the town names, or they may even be the venue names. So you'll be able to choose those. You'll be able to choose both the service types and the program activities. And the program activities are those old service options when we first started the reform. And the service types were those flexible activities that we talked about at the beginning of the TEI reform. So if you are choosing this particular page, which is the overview of attendee numbers, you'll be able to see all of your numbers. But not only that, you'll actually be able to click on, you might want to click on this TEI community centres to only see the data for the community centres, and that will come up. You might want to click on within the community centres, there will probably be perhaps community sector coordination. There might be community sector planning that you can click as a service type as well, and even get down to smaller parts of information. You can click on age groups. You may be a youth worker and you would like to see the data for those, for that particular community centres, for community sector planning, but community sector planning about young people. So you might click on that. So you can certainly get onto your reports and look at it in different ways. And as I said earlier, I encourage everyone to just get on and start clicking bits of information, start looking at how your data changes when you filter for different things. Here we have just the individual clients and support persons data, and it will give you particular information. So you've got information on those clients that have identified as Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islanders. You have information on people that have identified with a disability and called, and those who are homeless. So you certainly have lots of information broken up into particular age groups as well, and broken up into gender also. So again, you could click on a particular column, you could click on a particular piece of pie and just get that information as well. You would be able to click on called and just get information on those people that that identified as cold. But you could also get information on cold people that might have identified as homeless as well. So you can certainly get that information down and narrow it to perhaps particular programs or perhaps particular target groups. This page is the client demographics, and it talks about the attendance. So it's giving you the attendance, but the number of sessions that generally those age groups of people are attending. So that's another piece of information that might be interesting for you. Here is the referral information, and there is referral in information and out. But there's the referral information that's collected when someone comes into the service. So they might that might be through an intake, or it might be through your first few conversations with clients. And you can record that when you create a case. So you might be creating a case for an individual or a family, or you might be creating a case for a group, but you will be pulling clients into that case. So within that client file in the case is where you would report referral in. When you create a session that sits underneath those cases and you pull those clients in, that's where you can record referral outs. And you can certainly record a number of different referrals that might happen. So you might, in the first meeting, refer someone into an internal playgroup. You might refer someone also into an external NILS program. So there is certainly space to record that information, and it will show on your reports. There is client outcomes overviews. So certainly looking at those scores, those circumstance goals and satisfaction scores. This is actually the outcomes overview with identified clients, this particular page. And there's another page. Certainly, if you are looking at the data for one particular reporting period, that is all you would get. So please just remember, if you put filters on, you may need to look at deleting those filters if you want to see a broader view. The filters actually come up in this toolbar up here. So you'll be able to see which filters that you've applied for each of the pages or the data that you're looking at. This is a very messy page, but it does tell a very interesting story. What you're looking at is your initial and subsequent scores across program activities and service types. So your light green is the average initial score. The earliest score that is recorded for individual clients, and your dark green is the latest or subsequent score recorded. And you can see there that there are different shifts in the score data. So if you are looking at perhaps counselling in that top graph, you're looking at a smaller shift in outcomes to others that you might be looking at, perhaps community engagement on the same graph. With community scores, you can have a single score. So you may be looking at an interagency that has a number of different meetings, and you might decide to score once every quarter, or you might decide to score once every reporting period. So that would be a single score, but you can also pair community scores as well. You can pair community scores as well. So you may have the same interagency that you want to see a shift in knowledge, perhaps, or skills, or behaviour. along the term or along the reporting period. So you might take an initial community score at the beginning of that reporting period, and then at the end of that reporting period. And you would be able to see both those single scores, but you'd be able to see the paired scores as well. Now, the last part of the this workshop was really about showing you how you can actually check what is on your schedule in your contract against your reports, against what you're actually reporting to in DEX. So when you just a moment. Sorry about that. I will get back to you in a moment. My apologies, really. Let me share the screen with you again. Right, back to where we were, and my apologies. So in your contract, you have what is called a schedule, and the schedule actually has your deliverables on it. So that is a really useful document for everyone in the organization to have. You can actually photocopy it separately and not give workers perhaps who don't need access to the money or the contracting part of your contract. They'll have access to that. So going back to those resources, just as a quick reminder, this is where they are. They're in the key TEI resources on your DCJ website. You go to, I just Google TEI Resources DCJ, and usually I come up with the correct page that I can just go directly to. You'll need to scroll down the page and you get to all of those resources that we've talked about in the first section of this recording. And just to have a quick look at them again, the data exchange report one talks about applying filters, and we showed you the filters page earlier on. The using data in the TEI program talked about demonstrating performance against contracts, and that's what we're actually going to look at right now. And then there was the using data to improve our services. So having a look at the data reports and being able to use those as a continuous improvement process, and also the TEI activity report. And that was the report that we just looked at the pages of previously. So where does your contract tell you what you're funded to deliver? Here's that schedule that I was talking about that is in your contract. And there's two tables. There's a service plan and there's service details. So if you look at the service details, it talks about the location that you are delivering services in, the target group that you're delivering, the service type, and across the top, the program activity, both connected, the quantity of clients and the outcome, the TEI program outcome that you're funded to deliver against. In this document, the using data in the TEI program, this is a tool that is really useful for you. You'll be able to use it as a checklist, and just really the first 5 probably are the ones that you will use in the immediate future to look at your data and make sure that you're reporting what you're funded to deliver. But also the 6 and 7, perhaps once your data is looking really good and it is you're happy with how you're reporting it and your CPO and you've had a conversation about it reflecting your contract, then certainly looking at that, checking your minimum data set and checking your data quality as well. In your schedule, these are the areas. So if you're checking your outlets, you'll be looking at the location column in your schedule. The program activities and service types are there. Program activity is across the top and the service types down in the green column. The client numbers are obvious. The client demographics are there in target group. And you're looking at the client and community outcomes there in the TEI program client outcome column. Just remember that when you are checking off with your data, that you may actually be delivering the first program in A-Town to young people in the second half of the year. So keep that in mind when you're looking at your reporting. You're not going to see that reflected in your reports because that data will be going in the next reporting period. So just keep an eye on things like that. But you're really asking, are you delivering services in the locations that are nominated on your schedules? And do the LGAs match up? So this would be the page that you would look at that on your TEI activity report. It's called the Overview of Attendee Numbers sheet on your TEI activity report, and you'd be able to see those numbers there. Here's the outlet. You'll be able to filter by the outlet and you'll be able to check off on the numbers. The service type, the question you're asking is, do our program activities and service type match up between the schedule and the data? And you'd be looking at these particular pages, and this is an extra filter. You have the filters page, but you can actually filter from within each of these pages on your TEI activity report. So you'd be using these filters to find out that information. Client numbers, are they reflecting the numbers in your schedule? Just remember what I said earlier, you may deliver certain programs in the second half of the year, and you might be looking at data for just the first half of the year, so keep that in mind as well. But here you have the attendance rates in the client demographics page. Looking at your target groups, not all target groups will be identified in DEX because you will have unidentified groups. So again, keep that in mind when you're looking at your target groups. Client demographics, if you're looking for certain information about your client demographics, this is just a table that will show you where to find it in all of the different reports and information. The client outcomes that were given to you by your districts will also probably be those outcomes, or should be those outcomes, that are on the last column of your program logic as well. The outcomes are under the domains of the Human Services Outcomes Framework. So there were certainly a number of outcomes under the TEI program that sat under those same domains, those same 7 domains. And here they are. You've got the domains at the top. You've got the TEI program client outcomes. Then you go down. This is a table that will help you to be able to choose perhaps which outcomes you might measure in SCORE. Certainly, if you're looking at the first column and increased participation in community events, in the circumstances score, if you are identifying individuals, you might measure community participation and networks. If you are applying a community score to that, it could be a number of different scores. But if you were looking at a event, it might be measuring social cohesion in the community score domain. If you have identified clients there, or it's a activity that has all identified clients, there's probably a number of goals. They're saying here that the goal scores sit across all the domains and that you would choose the most appropriate one or ones to measure. There is a minimum data set, and you can check off your reporting with your minimum data set, and it will be in the client demographic information. When you are looking at the red asterisks, they are all of the data exchange, DSS priority requirements. So that's the information that DSS wants you to have on clients in the client files on DEX. In addition to that is the double black asterisks, and that is information that the TEI program are asking for in addition to that of DSS. So that's where you see the homeless indicator information and the reason for seeking assistance and referral types. So that is where you'll get that information from. And all of that goes in when you are entering client information into their client files in DEX. Or will go in through the system to system transfer if that's what you're using. Please don't forget that on the DCJ TEI website, there is a client intake form that you can use just by taking this front page off. And you can certainly use it as your own, or you could use it to check off your current intake form that you're using at the moment to see if you're collecting all the information that you need to, your minimum data set. In this document using data in the TEI program, again, if you're after certain information, it shows you where to find that information in reports. And please, when you look at these resources on the TEI Resources website, some of them are very lengthy, 40 or more pages, but they are full of a lot of photo or screenshots of things. So certainly that is not all writing or all instruction in those 40 pages. There's lots of pictures in there that have been included to show you what you're going to see on your screen as you click through certain pages of your reports. When you are checking for data quality, there's different things that you'll be checking for. You might be checking for those unpaired scores. When you report scores on DEX, you actually need 2 scores for the outcome to be recorded as a paired score. So that shows on your reports, and you'll be able to see that. You'll be able to look at whether you're recording outcomes in the score domains that are representative of your TEI program outcome domain. You'll be able to look at your identified groups versus unidentified groups, the numbers there, to see if you're meeting those targets as well. So certainly this document will take you through how to look at your data quality through the reports. We talked about the SLK keys. When you're entering client information, you may see their information at your end, but when it goes to DSS, when it goes through for the reports, it actually goes through those 4 pieces of data go through, those 4 fields go through as an SLK key. So there may be instances where the statistical linkage keys mightn't be fully, the information isn't fully there. So you'll be able to look at that and see if there's anything that you can actually do to improve that information that you're entering in for the client files. There are certainly DCJ recommended goals for missing data. And these are things that we're actually working towards. What we're probably looking at in the first instance is those percentages going down. There is a lot of missing data for certain things, because when we first started entering client information, there were perhaps existing clients that were entering information, and we may not have had all the information needed for the minimum data set. But also we may have decided as an organization that you are entering a minimum amount of information to get all your clients onto the system. So that might have been a process, but over time, the expectation is that those percentages will go down. Same with the gender, Indigenous status, main language spoken at home. There's percentages that we are all trying to work towards. This is an old table. This was about identified groups versus unidentified, identified individuals versus unidentified groups and individuals. And certainly in the targeted support and intensive and specialist support, we would expect that you will have client details for the majority of those people that you see. And also in the community strengthening stream, that will be less, and certainly in community connections, significantly less identified people. Really, it is use your practice wisdom and your particular programs about what information you enter into DEX. Those are conversations that you have within your own organisation, and then ones that you have with your CPOs as well. When we talked about the page that had all the referral source for clients, I mentioned that there are 2 different ways that you can enter referral source. One is in the case on entry, and one is in the session. So certainly that is a link to show you how to do both of those, how to add referral source informations in both a case and in a session. We don't need to worry about the poll. I'm actually going to leave this screen on for a moment. This is how you would connect to us through the QR code. So certainly updating your details. And in a minute, I'm going to show you the QR code for our Facebook. But what we are certainly asking you to do is to connect with us. If you're not getting the newsletter that we send out weekly, it's called the Weekly Wrap. Please update your details so that you can get that. The PowerPoints for these, the 2 PowerPoints, so the beginning PowerPoint and the end PowerPoint, are actually up on our website at the moment. So you'll be able to find those. So you can download those either before this or after this recording. Here is the Facebook QR code. I can't thank everyone enough. Central Office, who have developed the resources, you, the sector, who continue to work so willingly and enthusiastically, even though there are challenges that keep getting put up in front of you. We are, I think this reform, we've worked together well. We'd like to continue that work. So thank you for the work that you've put into engaging in this reform, and the work that you've put into getting onto DEX, as challenging as that was, as we all know. Thank you, everybody, for listening in. Again, the resources, the PowerPoint presentations for this are up on our website, so please access those. We will be hopefully coming out to the districts and visiting, but certainly we will have lots more opportunities and hybrid events coming up. I think our next step is really to look at how you use your reports to improve service delivery. So we'll certainly be talking to you about that in the near future. I look forward to seeing you all soon. Goodbye.